welcome to AI Talk Radio, your daily World Cup pulse, bringing you live pre-match analysis straight from the heart of the tournament. We're just hours away from kickoff at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, and the stakes could not be higher. This is the opener of Group C, Brazil versus Morocco, and honestly, this might be the toughest opening fixture of the entire tournament for any of the so-called favorites. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Daniel, and Daniel, the tension around this one is something else.
It really is, Adam. And before we get into lineups and tactics, let's just sit with the magnitude of this fixture for a second. Brazil, 5-time world champions, 24 years without lifting the trophy, opening their campaign against a side that became the first African team in history to reach a World Cup semifinal. This is not a gentle opener by any stretch.
No, and I think that's what makes this so fascinating. Normally, a big nation wants a confidence-building win in match one. Brazil is getting the opposite, a banana skin of a fixture right out of the gate.
Let's talk about Morocco first, because their form coming into this tournament is honestly remarkable. They're unbeaten in 5 matches across all competitions. They won the Africa Cup of Nations, beating Senegal in the final. Since then, a 2-1 win over Paraguay, a 5-0 demolition of Burundi, a 4-0 win against Madagascar, and a 1-1 draw with Norway just last weekend.
That's a team peaking at the right time. And there's history here too, right? Morocco's last head-to-head with Brazil wasn't even that long ago.
Right. They actually beat Brazil 2-1 in a friendly back in March 2023. Now, friendlies are friendlies, but psychologically, Morocco's camp knows they can hurt this team.
And let's not forget, this Moroccan generation is the same core that went to the semifinals in Qatar. These aren't players who'll be overwhelmed by the occasion. If anything, they've been here before.
Now let's flip to Brazil, because there's a storyline here that changes everything. Neymar.
Yeah, talk us through that.
Neymar is listed as game-time doubtful with a grade 2 calf injury. Most reports suggest he's not going to be ready for this one. And if that's confirmed, Igor Thiago is expected to start up front instead. That is a massive downgrade in terms of experience and big game composure for Brazil's attack.
It's wild to think Brazil could be opening a World Cup at home, essentially, given the co-host factor with the U.S., without their biggest star.
And it's not just Neymar. Wesley is also ruled out with a muscle injury picked up in the warm-up win over Egypt. So Ancelotti's been dealing with selection headaches all week.
Speaking of Ancelotti, how much of a factor is he in all this? Because this feels like one of the most scrutinized managerial appointments in recent World Cup history.
Huge factor. Look, there have been more talented Brazilian squads on paper over the years, but tactically, this might be one of the best coached Brazil teams in decades. Ancelotti brings European pragmatism, defensive structure, game management, knowing how to see out tight matches. That could be exactly what's needed against a side like Morocco that thrives on chaos and transitions.
Okay, let's get into the actual lineups. Daniel, what are we expecting from Brazil?
The projected lineup is 4-3-3. Alisson in goal, back four of Danilo, Marquinhos, Gabriel Magalhães, and Alexandro. Casemiro and Bruno Guimaraes holding in midfield, with Lucas Paquetá given a bit more freedom. And then up front, Rafinha and Vinicius Jr. on the wings, with Cunha or Igor Thiago through the middle, depending on Neymar's final status.
That's a midfield built to win the ball back fast. Casemiro and Guimaraes together gives a lot of defensive cover for those center backs.
Exactly. And on the other side, Morocco. Bunu in goal, a Champions League winning goalkeeper, by the way, so don't underestimate that experience. Back four of Hakimi, Diop, Riyad, and Mazraoui, though Mazraoui's shoulder is still a slight question mark after that Norway game.
And the midfield three?
El-Ainaoui and Bouhaddi sit in the double pivot, screening in front of the back four. And then ahead of them, Brahim Diaz, Unahi or El Khanous, and Saibari, all rotating behind a lone striker, likely El Kaabi.
That's a midfield packed with technical quality. Brahim Diaz alone can turn a half on his own with one piece of magic.
Let's talk tactics for a second. What do you think the actual game plan looks like for each side?
For Brazil, I think it's about controlling tempo early, trying to get Vinicius isolated one-on-one against the Moroccan fullback as much as possible. They have the individual quality to win in transition if Morocco overcommits.
And for Morocco?
Classic counterpunching setup. Sit in that compact mid-block, let Brazil have possession in areas that don't hurt them, and then explode through Hakimi's runs or quick combinations through Brahim Diaz. If they can keep it 0-0 or 1-1 into the final 20 minutes, their experience in knockout-style pressure, remember Qatar, could be a massive advantage.
It really does feel like a final tournament intensity match, even though it's Matchday 1.
All right, let's get into predictions. The bookmakers have Brazil as clear favorites, around -167, with Morocco sitting at +400 for the win, and the draw around +290.
Those odds make sense given the overall squad quality gap, but I don't think they fully capture how dangerous Morocco are in this specific matchup, especially with Brazil potentially missing Neymar.
So what's your prediction, Daniel?
I'll go with Brazil 2, Morocco 1. I think Brazil's depth eventually shows, probably through a set piece or a moment of individual brilliance from Vinicius or Rafinha, but Morocco gets one back and makes it nervy until the final whistle.
I actually lean slightly different. I could see this finishing 1-1. Morocco's defensive shape, combined with Brazil missing their main creative spark in Neymar, might just be enough to frustrate them into a draw.
Either way, I don't think anyone watching tonight should expect a comfortable Brazil win. This has all the ingredients of a classic World Cup opener shock.
One last thing before we wrap. What should viewers actually watch for in the opening 15 minutes?
Watch how high Morocco's midfield press starts. If El Inaoui and Bouadi are aggressive from minute 1, that tells you Morocco came to play, not to sit back. And watch Brazil's first few transitions. If Vinicius gets isolated early and Brazil look comfortable progressing the ball, that's a good early sign for the favorites.
Great insight as always, Daniel. All right, everyone. That's our full pre-match breakdown for Brazil versus Morocco. Kickoff is just hours away at MetLife Stadium. Make sure you're tuned in, and we'll be back right after the final whistle with full reaction, the actual result, and what it means for the rest of Group C. For now, this is AI Talk Radio, signing off ahead of kickoff. Let's go!